Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest is Rick Arvielo. He is co-founder and CEO at New American Funding. He's a self-taught entrepreneur with a passion for marketing. Founded his third business, New American Funding, in 2003. His proven formula of marrying marketing and proprietary technology to grow businesses from the ground up has led to the continuing success of his latest endeavor. The company is now an approved Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae seller servicer and has grown to include a retail-based lending division, a builder division, and a servicing portfolio of $63.9 billion. A leader in the industry, Rick is involved in several member associations that play a vital role in the current and future progress of mortgage banking. On a national level, he frequents Washington, D.C. to lobby on behalf of the industry. He is a member of the Mortgage Bankers Association, where he has served on the board of directors. He served in an elected position on the steering committee for the Mortgage Action Alliance Committee, and he's held a seat at the NBA's Residential Board of Governors. Additionally, he was on the 2017-2018 chairman of MORPAC, the NBA's Political Action Committee. His involvement with these associations comes from his passion for making a positive impact on the industry for future generations. Today, Rick leads approximately 163 branches and about 3,490 plus employees, with the goal of providing unparalleled service and mortgages at competitive rates, helping individuals fulfill the American dream of owning a home. Rick, welcome onto the show.
We're going to have to rework that intro. That's way too long.
It's just all the wonderful stuff that you do, right?
Yeah. Even I was nodding off. So we're going to have to work on that. It's a little dated too, but anyway, it's great to be on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show, how involved you've been in our industry and why it makes you the perfect person to be on our show today, talking about all cash offers, which I'm really excited to be talking about. I've done about 200 episodes of this show, and we've never talked about this as an option for buyers, and I know how popular they've been, in the past few years. We've really seen this as a trend. So I'm excited to dive into this with you today. But before we get started on that, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. I know I read off your bio, but I'd like to hear about how you got started in the industry. Did you always know you wanted to get involved in real estate? And tell me a little bit about you and what's led you to where you are today.
Great. Yeah, well, it's going to be the Reader's Digest version. No, I had no inkling or, motivation to get in finance or real estate or anything like that. I actually started a company out of high school with a couple of high school buddies and sold it in the late part of the 90s, like 97 or 98, and retired. I was 34 years old. At least I thought I retired. I was 34 years old. I didn't work for a few years. And then the dot-com bust made sure I had to go back to work. So I thought I was brilliant in 99, and in 2000, I was the dumbest person because I basically squandered everything away. And at the time I was dating my now wife, Patty Arvielo, and I was like, I don't even know what to put on a resume. I bootstrapped a company out of high school. I bartended for a while. When I got my business off the ground, maybe I'll go back to that. And she said, no, try mortgage. That was literally my introduction to the mortgage industry. Is my girlfriend at the time, Patty Arvielo. And so I got involved and we started to develop technology. The original company was thebrokernetwork.com, and the goal was to build a CRM for brokers. I joined a small mortgage company to make sure I could perfect my software, and then realized, how lucrative the mortgage industry can be. Patty at the time was running a processing business, and I said, hey, why don't we join forces and just start our own thing? And that was in 2003, the start of New American Funding, and it's just been slow organic growth ever since. We were a broker in the beginning. It took us about a year. We got our warehouse lines, became a bank. We were 100% call center up until 2012, 11 or 12. And then, it was one of the slowdowns. I said, we really need have a foothold in outside distributed retail. So we started opening branches. I think our first branch was in Colorado in 2012. And now I think we're close to 250 branches. I think we sit at, I want to say the 12th largest independent mortgage banker in America. But it's just been slow organic growth. I mean, we did buy one company, Marketplace Home Lending, back in 2018. They were a smaller, mostly a Minnesota lender. Other than that, everything that we've done is just to build proprietary technology and tools and services to attract top loan officers and keep building out our call centers. And that's what we've been doing ever since. We're currently almost 5,000 employees, and we just hope to keep growing. We'll give what the business gives us. So things like NAV cash, and I know that that's one of the things you really want to get into. It was one of our loan officers' ideas. It wasn't one of our ideas. It was during COVID when you couldn't get a house. I mean, everyone was offer after offer after offer. They couldn't get a house, and we realized that, okay, you're not only going up against wealthier homeowners that are offering cash, but you're going up against Wall Street that's offering cash. So we needed to come up with a program that allowed our consumers to get qualified to offer cash so they could win the deal. And that's basically the way it started. I want to say it was 2021 we actually launched the business.
Yeah, and you're totally right. I think, that became such a competitive time, in those all cash offers were just popping up everywhere. I think, it certainly, hadn't been that way pre-COVID, but it was just a great way to make those offers go through when it was so competitive and everyone, was fighting over that inventory. And we really got to see that, really take off. So it's great you saw that and recognized that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you all were able to do during that time, how you really used it to your advantage, and talk to us about how it became a key strategy in today's market.
Yeah, that kind of evolved. In the beginning it was just like our consumers, New American Funding consumers have to have an advantage when trying to win a deal. And cash just seemed to be the biggest advantage that we were in a position to offer. Right? So that was 2021. Rates are 3%. Everyone's trying to buy a house. There's not enough inventory. And then the world changed, right? So rates started to pop in 2022. And I don't know if you'll remember, but all the headlines back then were housing prices are going to crash,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're buying homes on behalf of a consumer, I actually buy the home and hold it until they sell their departing resident, and then they buy it from me at what I paid for it. So we don't, I mean, there's a convenience fee, but I'm not upselling anything. I mean, it's just a way for the borrower to win in a competitive situation. So then 2022 rolls around and all the headlines are, think of what happened during the Great Recession when home prices went down. And so we really had to take a look at what we felt was going on. And I did some podcasts back then where I think, one of the lone dissenting voices saying, there's no way property values are going to go down. I mean, when you look at the difference between what happened in 2008, 2009, we had overbuilt. And as a result, you had more supply than demand and prices go down. I said, but ever since then, builders got so clobbered, they've been underbuilding now for a decade. I mean, there's some estimates where we have a 5 million home shortage. So when we look at it just from a supply demand perspective, we're like, okay, we're not overbuilt, we're underbuilt. There's no way home values are going to go down. So I kept buying. I kept buying houses all the way throughout the slowdown because I realized there's the home prices were far more likely to keep going up. And that's exactly what happened. Now, the motivation for using cash changed, right? So now we don't have this tsunami of buyers coming in and out of houses. What you have is sellers who had the experience of home values just launching over 20 and 21 being somewhat unrealistic about what their home is worth when they tried to sell it in 22 and 23, right? It's like, and so the froth needed to get knocked off. And that's what happened. So the motivation for using cash changed from, look, I want to be the pretty girl at the dance, right? And get chosen to buy this house to, I need to put myself in a position to negotiate the acquisition of this home with something other than I'm going to close on time and I'm, a great person and all those types of things. And cash still is king. So when you're selling a home's a pain in the ass, right? You've got to list it, you've got to make it pretty, you've got to get out of the house whenever somebody wants to go by. Somebody buys it and then they fall out. I mean, there's all these unknowns. So with cash, you come in with this level of certainty that just gives you a position of strength when negotiating for that house. And so even though the motivation changed, the advantage was still there. And we realized that the people that got it really understood, hey, if I can come in with cash, this guy's selling their house for 400, I'm going to offer him 380 cash. I mean, we have stories of people getting homes for $60,000, $70,000 discounts from builders. It's just that certainty of cash has value well above the convenience fee. I mean, we charge 1.5% for the use of the cash because I have to borrow the cash to buy the house. But you can easily save more than 1.5% from a negotiation standpoint. So the cash business just kept moving along. We made some mistakes. We bought some houses that were way too high and took some hits. But for the most part, it's really so we bought well over 1,000 homes now. I think it's closer to 2,000 homes. It's just provided an advantage to our consumers to put them in a more negotiated position. So I think cash buying is here to stay because I think if rates drop down into the fives, I believe you're going to see a tsunami of buyers show up. There's still no inventory. I think you're going to see values start to ramp. I wouldn't be surprised if Wall Street comes back in unless our government stops it somehow, which they should, in my opinion. They shouldn't allow Wall Street to buy all the single family stock in America.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to see the same thing that happened in 20 and 21, where cash is going to give you a first look, essentially. And then when things ebb the other way and the buyers start to go away, now you're going to be in a more negotiating position by using cash. So I think cash is here to stay.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think it was just, that trend that we saw in the COVID time. I think we've seen now we're going on year 5 removed from COVID and we're still seeing these cash offers and them being very attractive, as a realtor, as someone who would present those offers, those are always something that can help give you a leg up in those offers. So I agree with you. I think that's why this conversation is, so good to be having because when you want to give advice to potential buyers out there and sellers too on, how do you get your home? We hear so often that like homeownership is unachievable and no one's going to be able to do it. I mean, this is such a great strategy that I think people should be thinking about, essentially, even if you aren't ready to do it now, if you're planning to buy a home in the next 10 years, how can you make this a part of your strategy and how can you start thinking about it now? And I think it's really interesting because you mentioned that, yes, of course, it's attractive for sellers, but it's really attractive for buyers too, to not have to deal with that mortgage. And, we've heard that mortgage rates are an issue for people, and that's been a barrier, for some potential buyers in entering the market. But this could really be a great way to kind of alleviate some of that.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org. and then click on the pre-license course locations.
I would love to get your advice on what you would tell the consumer, if they want to make this a part of their strategy. How should they go about thinking about it? What's your advice to those buyers who want to make this something that they could be using for their potential offer?
Basically, just have to get in touch with the team over at NAF Cash because there's an approval process, right? So we get the borrower approved and we get the realtor approved. So this is kind of serious thing. We're buying a house on behalf of a consumer to allow them to finance it later. So we need to make sure that it's being properly represented both from the buyer's perspective and from the realtor's perspective. So we require them both to go through a training. But the way I look at it is it's really a no-brainer. There's no cost to get approved for cash. Zero. So what I would do if I was a consumer today considering buying, and whether it's in a competitive situation or I wanted to give myself the best opportunity to negotiate the best deal for myself, I would get my realtor and myself approved for NAV cash. And then I would just have it as a playing card in my pocket if I need it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a competitive situation, I feel like the cash offer is going to give me an advantage. I would use it. And if somebody had a house that was maybe sitting on the market for a little bit and it might be listed too high, I would use it as a way to negotiate down the price. And if you don't need it, don't use it. There's zero cost unless you use it. It's just an advantage if you need it. And what's interesting is we really saw, I assume it's still going on. I haven't checked in lately, but we really saw an advantage in the builder community because builders, if they have standing inventory or if they want to do deals, they really like the idea of a cash offer. And we've seen some incredible reductions in prices for people using cash. So that's what I would advise is any consumer get approved. If you find it can provide an advantage, use it. And if you don't. And it's just that simple.
Yeah, no, that's a great bit of advice. And I think too, working with that realtor is so important too, making sure, that they're aware of what you want in your strategy and bringing them along with you on that ride, communicating that, that could really help. I know for us, we're, very aware of why cash offers are so appealing, but to the average person who may not know or understand it or may not be thinking about it, could you just explain maybe a little bit why buyers or sellers love it? You mentioned the builders, why they love it. Just tell us a little bit about why it's so appealing for people in the home buying and selling markets to see those all cash offers.
Well, it's just like I said, it's a pain to sell a house.
Yeah.
You hold it open, you got people traipsing through your home. You've got to make sure it's just a pain. Everything about it's a pain. As a matter of fact, the last 3 homes that I've sold personally have all gone to cash buyers, all 3 of them. So it is prevalent out there. And when I was considering offers, I was like, yeah, just take that offer so we can be done, right? It's like I don't have to worry if the borrower ultimately doesn't qualify for a loan. I mean, that's a big part of it. I don't have to worry about so many things. I can stop getting out of my house when somebody wants to go see it. I can stop making sure it's pristine every second. I mean, all those things that are just a pain, take the cash offer. So I know firsthand, how valuable it is. And that's really, really the motivation. There's a certainty with cash. That's why Wall Street has done so well with it. They bought hundreds of thousands of homes just because they came in and offered cash. Cash. It's not like the seller wanted to sell their home to somebody on Wall Street and turn it into a rental. They'd want a family. Most people want families to occupy their homes. It's just it's so painful to go through that selling process. Okay, just give me the cash and I'll walk away and I'll be done. So it's certainty and it works. It absolutely works. It does matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, when we think about home prices and what's the biggest concerns we hear these buyers having? Well, home prices are high. I don't know if I can afford it. And that those mortgage rates are high. And this is a way to kind of alleviate both of those issues, I think, because if you're saying, hey, you could get, a couple tens of thousands of dollars off the home price. That in itself is very appealing. When we think about that, everyone wants to feel like they're getting a good deal. And, I think this could really help kind of with both of those issues. And it's something that absolutely going to be a strategy for more people to use moving forward. Any more advice for realtors or how realtors can help? Is there, you mentioned getting qualified, getting your clients signed up for that all cash option. Anything else realtors can be doing to help educate themselves on this or that they can do to help make this more of an option for their clients?
Well, I think, real estate is changing too, and it's getting harder, especially on the buy side with the NAR settlement and everything. So real estate agents really need to be the consummate professionals that warrant getting the fees that they should get. And they should get the fees that they get. They work hard, they spend a lot of time with consumers, they educate them, they go through the contract, they make sure that the borrower is protected in that process. So the real estate agent is a vital component to the transaction. There's just a lot of uncertainty right now, but it's just like our loan officers, our loan officers, they had to become more educated, I think, ever since Dodd-Frank and things changed. They had to prove their value, and realtors are right now, they need to really double down on their education and proving their value to the consumer. And one of those things is to know what's out there that can give you as a buyer an advantage for working with me. And cash is big and it's going to grow and it's going to stay relevant. So as a real estate agent, my advice would be get educated on it, get accredited with it. Doesn't have to be NAF cash. There's other companies out there that does it, but get accredited so you're in a position to offer cash if it would serve your borrower. And as a real estate agent, that really is part of the job, in my opinion, going forward, is you need to be educated on all these other tools and that are available to consumers today as their advisor. You just need to polish your skill set, and that's, I think, a very, very relevant tool to have in your tool chest. So that would be my advice to realtors: is really create value in yourself by being able to suggest these types of programs.
Yep, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, we have to be proving our worth, proving our value. We have to be selling, our clients on why to work with us. And, if you're able to pull this out in a buyer consult meeting and say, hey, I have, experience in this. I know ways that I can get you, what you want creatively. And, that is just such a leg up on what maybe other people are able to present to their clients. So I think it's great. And I know we've talked a little bit about predictions for the future, if this is going to stay around or not. What's going to happen to mortgage rates? Anything else that you see as kind of an upcoming trend for 2025? What should we be preparing for if we're talking about how to, really enhance our skill set and our knowledge as realtors? What else do you see coming down the pipeline that could be a trend for this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. The mortgage rate question comes up more and more, right? And I've been as wrong as everyone else has been wrong, and I've been right sometimes. But the one thing I feel confident is when rates come down, which I obviously am hopeful that they do, and they see a five handle, so 5%, 5.5, 5.75, something in the fives. I think you're going to see a torrent of pent-up demand hit the market, and there still is no inventory. I don't know what the answer to the inventory question is, because it's not something that our legislators can fix, right? Unless they really start to break down the regulation that affects the time and cost to build a home, and that's a real issue. I won't bore you with that, but that's a real issue. Our regulators need to allow builders to build and back off a little bit,
Hmm.
because that's the only way we solve this. Is you got to build your way out of it. Our population is still growing. Oh, you've got the millennials is just a fascinating group of people because it's the biggest bubble population in American history. It's 15 years. I think it's 29 to 44. I think so. They're prime home buying age. And the youngest millennials, the youngest 5 years, so 29 to 34, is 50% larger than the other two 5 year bubbles. But by that, I mean, these people want to buy homes. They're roaring toward home buying age. It's the biggest 5 year bubble of population that America has ever seen. And they're roaring towards prime home buying age, and there's no houses. I think home prices are going to continue to go up. I think if rates get into the fives, you're going to see much more mobility. It's hard to give up a 3% rate if you're going to seven. It's different to give up a 3% rate if you're going to five. It's a psychological difference. So I think if you see 5% handle on rates, you're going to see activity explode in real estate. I really, really do. So we'll see if I'm right. If we ever get to 5%, we'll remember this conversation and go, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
No, yeah, I agree with you. And I know I've talked to a few different economists, at the end of 2024, when I asked them the same question, like, what's going to happen with mortgage rates? That's what everybody wants to know. Are they coming down to those fives? Because I agree with you too. But I think, the people that I talk to at least are in agreement that, that 5% or that 5 in front of that number, is really going to be appealing to people who are maybe on the sidelines or like you said, don't want to leave their 3% mortgage rate, which is totally understandable. Another thing too is the home equity, right? Does that play into the cash, all cash offers that we're seeing too? Because there's a lot of people, we're seeing that home equity is really built up and homeowners are staying in their homes longer. They're seeing that increase. Is that affecting any of this at all?
You know what? I don't see it having any kind of an impact on NAV cash, but it is interesting. We have a $70 billion servicing portfolio, and we love our customers and we like to make sure that we're giving them the best possible service. And as a result, we do a lot of surveys and, what can we do better? And the one thing that recently came up that's very interesting, probably worthy of deeper dive, for podcasters like you, is the number of people that are selling their homes and not buying another one. So this is a trend that we've never seen before. Typically, when somebody sells a home, they buy another one. And in our servicing portfolio, we noticed that that's not the case. And so we started to dig in. And at first we thought, okay, here are the baby boomers, right? Here are the people that are older and they want to downsize. They want to move in with their kids. They want to move to a vacation area. So they're just selling their house and they're renting. But that's not the case. The majority of people that are selling their homes and not buying another one are in that, call it 35 to 50-year-old age group. And I think some of it might have to do with the fact that insurance and property taxes are rising so quick. So somebody buys a house, even if they're in a 3% rate. I mean, think about it. I'm 40 years old. I have a family. I bought my dream home. I got a great rate. Now my $300,000 house is worth $500,000. But my property tax bill just doubled and my insurance just doubled. So the amount of money I have to spend is way more than I signed on for 3 or 4 years earlier. So I'm just going to sell my house and I'm going to become a renter and I'm going to put that 200 grand in my pocket. That's not an outlandish idea. I feel like that's what's happening out there right now. I'm surprised that no studies have been done because
that's interesting.
Yeah, that changes the landscape of real estate right now. People don't really talk about taxes and insurance and the fact that they've really gone up as a component of home ownership.
And there's a way to, help with the inventory, right? If you're having people that are giving up their homes but aren't rebuying, there you go. That's a, positive on the net homes, right, that are available. So
yeah, but they still have to live somewhere. So I'm going to sell my home. That adds a house to the inventory, but now I got to rent somebody's home. So that's taking a house out of inventory.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Somebody smarter than me has got to really think about that one. But it is interesting that we've never really seen what's happening today happen before, at least in the 20 years that I've been involved in this industry. So it's going to be interesting to see how this ultimately plays out.
Yeah, no, I think that's super fascinating. I know a lot of people were at the beginning of the year getting hit with their property tax bills. And I've just seen complaints on Facebook in my neighborhood groups about, how expensive it's gotten. And you're right, it's going to impact these people. They're going to say, hey, is this really worth it? Am I wasting money now on it because of some of the reasons why you just listed? So definitely interesting. Now you have my wheels spinning. We could go in a whole other conversation with this. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap up the conversation today, Rick. This was awesome. Very interesting. I have a lot more I want to get into, but unfortunately we're out of time for today. But I want to thank you so much for joining me and for your very insightful conversation today.
My pleasure. Anytime. Good luck to you and your podcast world. And anytime you want to chat, I'd love to.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.